You've been there, you've done that, you've walked the walk, you've talked the talk, you've helped a lot of people go do it.
I'm pretty committed to doing a fucking good job.
Hello folks, my name is Richard Triggs and I'm the founder and CEO of Arete Executive. You definitely don't want to miss this episode. There'll be lots to learn, not only if you're new to the recruitment industry or if you're an old fossil like me.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Confessions of a Recruiter. Triggsy, this is our third time chatting, mate. How good's this?
Well, it's our second time one-on-one.
One-on-one, yeah, and Confessions Live. That was an event.
I was coming in, I was going, oh my God, am I going to have to hit that bloody golf ball into the hole again? But fortunately, I don't have to do that anymore.
We didn't bring that into season 3. Is that something we should bring back?
We've got a new version of that. It's called the boomerang throw.
Really?
And so what we have to do is go outside on the street and throw a boomerang and catch it again.
Yeah. Well, do you know what I was going to do? I was going to come in and challenge you guys to do a suicide shot. Have you ever done a suicide
What's that?
shot?
Oh, that's
so you've done a
in the
tequila
eye,
shot,
snort the thing.
right? So instead of licking the salt, drink the tequila and suck the lemon, you snort the salt, you drink tequila, and then you squeeze the lemon in your eye.
Oh, lovely.
How many tequila shots have you done after 16 years in business?
A few.
Yeah.
But I just went on holidays with 10 of my mates for a 50th to Bangkok. And there were 10 of us for 10 days. And there was no trips to hospital. There was nobody went to jail. Nobody got a face tattoo. So I feel that, it was a win. But I was introduced to the suicide shot while I was there. I'm going to say I like it.
Really?
I'm a bit of a fan now. I think it's going to be my signature move.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe we'll have to do a suicide shot after the potty.
Yeah.
Sounds
Well,
good.
maybe next year. We're off the booze. Stay accountable. All right, so mate, I'm just going to pump you up for a bit here.
Okay.
You happy with that?
Sure.
Sure. So over the last 15 years, Richard Triggs and his team have placed over 1,500 executives and board directors across Australia, and you've coached over 2,500 executives in how to find their job searches and get better. You're also the best-selling author of Uncover the Hidden Job Market, How to Find and Win Your Next Senior Executive Role, which you created a second edition in 2023. And we're here today because you're releasing Winning the War for Talent and How to Attract and Retain Top Performers. He also hosts the Arete podcast with over 200 episodes. So, mate, I think me and Blake can learn something off you here. And also Winning the War on Talent podcast. Beyond recruitment, you're an accomplished musician. What musical instrument do you play?
Singer guitarist. If you look on Spotify, Richard Triggs, I've got 2 albums on Spotify, and I've just started recording my third one.
Wow.
Nice. And then you're a psychotherapist.
What is that?
Wow, it just,
A psychotherapist?
Is that just means you've
Or
been in
a
recruitment for a long time?
well, I
Like a psychotic therapist?
So I'll talk to you more about it on offline.
All right.
But basically, I did a 4-year training program to be a psychotherapist. So the difference between a psychotherapist and a psychiatrist is a psychiatrist can prescribe drugs. A psychotherapist is like a counsellor, I suppose. They can't prescribe drugs. I did a very specific kind of psychotherapy, and I didn't do it because I had any interest in being a psychotherapist. But what I've been able to bring over into, my recruitment career has been invaluable.
Wow.
Nice. Awesome. And then, so, mate, there's 2 massive areas which I did a summary on your book, and what I came to is you're going to present throughout this book a step-by-step methodology for hiring, retaining top talent. But essentially, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's divided into 2 sections. So attracting top performers. So this section guides leaders on building their brand as an employer of choice, which I think personal brand is a gateway for that. Creating strong hiring briefs, using effective sourcing strategies like referrals, advertising, headhunting. It also covers interviewing techniques, background checks, managing offers to prevent counter offers. We all know how much they hurt. Making a hiring structured and an easy to follow process. And then part 2 is retaining top performers. It's all well and good to go out there and get them, but you've got to become the person before you can keep them. So this is a section which emphasizes fostering a culture of love and accountability within organizations, starting with leadership. It explores how subconscious behavioral patterns influence performance and introduces the preferred reality framework. So it'd be cool to be able to break that down with you.
Sure.
Which is a tool that you've personally created. Is that Triggs's IP?
Look, I'd be lying if I said that any of it was really my IP. What I've been able to do over my entire career, not just in recruitment, is find tools that have worked for me and that I've taught to other people, and been able to bring that into a pretty practical methodology that people can implement. So what I make sure I do is each time I use a model or something that I've learned from somebody, I'll reference them and say, I learned this from my mate Colin Clark or Tim Dwyer or whoever it is. But there's really nothing new in the world.
No.
No.
You just got to be a good conduit and being able to get the big information down to the people that look up
That's right.
to you.
And you've got to be able to do it in a way that the people who are taking on the information not only can absorb it, but can actually implement it. Because what's the point in learning something if you don't do anything? So,
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's all about who can ask the best questions to get the best answers, and then who can take the massive action and then repeat it. But that's for a whole other topic.
Sure.
I've actually got a question. Before we dive any further, one thing that I'd love for people to know is, who are you writing the book for?
Well, okay, so a bit of this is not a short story, but I think will make sense. So I started my business in 2009. And then in 2014, I went and did a 1-year course called Key Person of Influence, which is now called DENT.
Yeah.
And basically, to be a key person of influence in your industry, you need to master 5 Ps. So, number 1, you need to master your pitch. Number 2, you need to publish for credibility. Number 3, you need to develop what they call a product architecture so that you can make money from your IP. Number 4, you need to build profile, social media profile, blah, blah. And number 5, develop partnerships. So, people who can refer your work and vice versa. And so anyway, I did this course and it was awesome. I loved it. And in the publish element, I decided to write a book, Uncover the Hidden Job Market, for executives and board directors, but predominantly executives, on how do you actually go about finding a job? Because most executives are really, really good at being a CFO or a COO or whatever, but when it comes to looking for a job, they're hopeless. So I wrote this book, and it never made any money. Mind you, I've probably sold or given away, I'd say, 20,000 copies now.
Wow.
And I wrote a new version in 2023, kind of the post-COVID version. But
why do books not make money? Like Greg Savage said, he makes $1 from his book, The Savage Truth.
Right.
How come books don't make money?
Well, firstly, I'd be surprised if he makes $1. He might make $1 if it's through a third-party publisher, and by the time they take out their marketing costs and distribution costs and blah blah blah, he's left with $1. It's like, I'm a musician, right? I've got 2 albums on Spotify, but I've never made any money from selling music. I mean, playing gigs, sure. You write a book because a book is like a business card on steroids. So if I am meeting with a senior executive and I go, here's my book on how to find a job, then at an intuitive or subconscious level, they go, wow, Richard must really know what he's on about because he wrote the book, right? So anyway, so I wrote this book, and then the best thing about that book, right? And one of the things that really pisses candidates off is they ring a recruiter and they go, "Oh, Fred, I'd love to come and have a meeting with you because I'm looking for a new job and I want you to, help me to find a new job." And Fred, the recruiter, of course, because Fred wants to be a good guy and he wants to be of service, which is wonderful, he meets with the candidate. And he says, "Oh, you're such a good candidate. I'm going to place you," and then the candidate never hears from him ever again. He never gets a return phone call. He never gets a reply to an email. And the candidate gets pissed off because they go, "Well, hang on a second. I went in there, I took the time to go in and have this meeting. This recruiter blew all this smoke up my butt, and now they've done nothing." Whereas what I do is I go, "Fred, I can't meet you, right? I'm sorry, I get 30 calls a week from people like you wanting to meet with me, and if I was to meet all of you, I would just make no money. So what I'll do instead is I'll send you a copy of my book for free. I'll send you 3 webinars for free. I'll send you a whole bunch of other resources for free. I run a networking drinks event once a month for free. I run breakfast groups. I run this, I run that, I do this." So the candidate, instead of going, "Richard overpromised and underdelivered," it's like, "Well, Richard didn't meet with me, but far out, he gave me so much value that when hopefully the candidate gets the job, they go, well, one of the only recruiters that actually helped me with Richard, so I need a new chief marketing officer now. I'm going to give Richard the job." Right? Okay, so that's why I wrote that book.
Awesome.
And it bought me so much time, right? You think about how much time you waste.
Well, perfect topics, because I want to go in on that.
Can I, just before we do that, because the question was, why did I write that book, right? So anyway, I in 2023, I said, look, I need to write a sort of a post-COVID version of that book. So I went and did a author retreat with a guy named Andrew Griffith in Tasmania, who's amazing. And if anybody wants an introduction, I'll happily do that. And and then the next stage is about becoming a professional speaker. And I'm thinking to myself, well, I really want to do professional speaking because if you're good, you can make a lot of money. And I don't know if you've already noticed about me, but I love the sound of my own voice, right? So, but the thing is, candidates won't pay for anything, right? I do this workshop every month. It's called Ask Me Anything. And so it's for candidates to come on and they can literally ask me anything about their job search and I will answer. And so I said it's free, it's once a month. And I would get 180 people subscribe and say they're coming, and then 6 people would show up because it was free. So I went, this is garbage. So I said, all right, I'm going to make it $18 plus GST, so $19.80, but I'm going to donate 100% of the money to charity. So I'm not making any money. I just want you to have some skin in the game so at least you show up. And it went from 180 people a month subscribing or RSVPing to 12. Now, these are $200,000 candidates, and they're not even prepared to spend $20, to have an hour or 2 hours with me. I mean, that's insanity, right? So I'm sitting there, and I had this blinding flash of the obvious moment. It's like, well, who's going to pay me the money? The employer, right? The candidates won't pay me anything. Because candidates, God bless you, you don't value recruiters, right? But so I went, okay, well, if I want to speak at conferences to employers, like if I want to go and do a keynote at the Australian Institute of Company Directors or whatever, then I need to write a book to give me the credibility to be the leading authority on how to attract and win and retain talent. So instead, I went, okay, 180-degree pivot. Mind you, at the same time, I'm running a recruitment company, I'm doing a podcast, blah, blah, blah. So this wasn't easy. But so I did a pivot and I went, okay, I'm going to write a book for the employer, right? And now I speak at the CEO Institute, I speak at Vistage, I'm speaking to 200 accountants next week. I'm being flown to a conference next month to speak to 150 people because I'm speaking to the employer.
Yeah, let's
And so that's why. So long story short, why did I write that book? It's a brochure.
It's fantastic.
So the purpose is to get more leads. More credibility, more authority, more leads, get your foot in the door to win more business.
Most employers are terrible at recruiting. So I even say, like, the book is called Winning the War for Talent, but I don't actually believe there's a war for talent. I believe there are companies which are really good at recruiting, and then most companies are terrible at recruiting. So I wrote the book to educate companies on how to recruit themselves much more successfully. So I didn't write it from the perspective of, you must come and use Arete Executive or you must use third-party recruiters, because internal recruitment is never going to go away. But the problem is, they're undertrained, they're poorly managed. Often they're working on 40 to 60 jobs at a time. One simple thing, which I think we've spoken about before, they write ads for jobs. They don't even put their name or phone number on an ad. And it's like these simple things. And you go, if only you knew how these minor shifts in what you do will vastly improve your ability to recruit. So the book is written for the employer to recruit themselves. But of course, there's going to be a time where they go, we need a chief marketing officer, or, we've got this role that we've been trying to fill and we haven't been able to fill it. Hey, I saw Richard speak at this conference. I read Richard's book. He's a leading authority on hiring. So, hey, Richard, will you recruit this role? So, in a sense, it's a lead magnet. Yeah.
Sure.
Love that.
But not an in-your-face one.
No.
It's let me give. There's this marketing guy, I think his name's Gary Vanderchuck, that guy?
Yeah,
Give
Gary,
twice, jab, hook.
Yeah, jab, hook, or whatever it is. So he's basically saying you give, and then you ask.
Yeah.
And that's always been my philosophy.
Love that.
And recruiters listening, they really want to be able to get to that stage, but there is a whole journey that you've had to go through to get there. So if we peel it all the way back, what was your thought process on thinking I should take on the challenge of writing a book? Like, where did this come from? What do you remember the moment in time where you were sitting there and you had this light bulb thought in your head and saying, I need to write my first book?
Well, I think firstly, like most people, I just fell into recruiting. I'd done a business degree. I'd worked in, a commercial business. I was doing an executive MBA. I decided time for a change. I went to see a recruiter, at the time Hudson, or TMP Worldwide at the time they were called. And his name was Craig Sneesby. And Craig Sneesby said, have you ever thought about being a recruiter? And I went,
Craig Sneesby got you into recruitment.
We can have a very long offline conversation about that. But yeah, Craig Sneesby, I joined his team, right? And it was a bit of a funny situation because I think he was 24 and had never managed anybody. And I was 36 and came from managing 750 people. And I think it'd be fair to say that, we had a challenging relationship. But now I have the highest respect for Craig, and if I ever see him around town, we always say good day, and he always looks beautifully polished and immaculate in his suit, and I always look like a scruff who just crawled out of a dumpster. But anyway, so I joined recruitment, and again, long answer to your question. I realised, I was there in the first 12 weeks, 14 recruiters resigned. Right, the turnover was massive, and then within 3 months, I realised to be better than 9 out of 10 recruiters, you've only got to do one thing: return people's phone calls. That's it. So I just said, rain, hail or shine, I will not go home until I return everybody's phone call. And even today, people go, oh my God, I can't actually believe that you returned my phone call, because recruiters have got such a terrible reputation for that. So I think what it's been for me is it's been, okay, how do I make myself more valuable? And one of the ways to make myself more valuable was to actually teach people this is what you need to do if you want to find a job.
Yeah, but how did you come to the conclusion to value yourself first?
How did I come to the conclusion to value myself first? Well, I suppose prior to doing that course, Key Person of Influence, I had no aspiration to write a book. But what they said was, if you want to master these 5 Ps and be a key person of influence, you've got to publish for credibility. So I thought to myself, well, what is a book that I can write that I actually know what I'm talking about, right? So trying to write a book on, being a beekeeper when I've never been a beekeeper would have been, terrible. But, I was able to write a 35,000 word book about how to find a job, and the feedback was fantastic. And even today, to give you one example, I'm sure he won't mind, I was talking to Peter Locke the other day, who was the CEO of Heritage Bank, and he's retired and he wants to get board roles. And I said, oh, Peter, have you read my book, Uncover the Hidden Job Market? He said, no. So I put a copy of it in the mail to him, and he literally emailed me the next week, and he went, Richard, I read your book in one sitting, and literally within 1 week, I've already got my first board role.
Awesome.
So,
I get a bit emotional because...
It's awesome, mate. The impact.
Yep.
That's what we're all here for.
My view is, if I'm happy and helpful, the universe will look after me. So all I want to be is happy and helpful. So if you talk about this book, so I'll give you an example. I ran this workshop for CEOs on how to hire more effectively. And this one CEO said, look, I can't attend. Can I send my head of HR and my head of recruitment? And so send these people along. And I went, okay, so what's going on for you? What's the pebble in your shoe? And they went, we've got 40 mission critical roles and we can't fill any of them. And we don't know what to do. I went, okay, well, let's break it down. So, I use a particular way of taking a brief called performance-based hiring, which comes from a guy named Lou Adler, who you may or may not have heard of. And it talks about when you're briefing a role, you want to understand what are the key deliverables of the first 3, 6, and 12 months.
Could we describe this? Say we pick a job. Could we go through this process with you now?
Let me come back to that, right? So I say to these people, so do you get briefed? And they go, no. The hiring manager just gives us a PD and says, look, can you give me a short list by, next Friday? Average briefing might be 10 minutes. This is a job. I want an engineering manager. It's 180K. It's based in Bundaberg. And I need somebody who's built bridges, and go for it, right? So they take a crap brief. Now, how can an internal recruiter deliver, or any recruiter, deliver a quality shortlist if they don't even know what they're recruiting, right? So then I go, okay, great. So then when you write your ads, you're writing a very generic ad based on a PD because they don't know anything about it. Most ads that are written, there's no what's in it for me. It's just, oh, we've got this job and blah, 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 and you should feel honoured that if you apply for it, we might possibly consider interviewing you. And so they write these shit ads, and I go, do you put your name and your phone number on the ad? No. Why not? Well, we don't, not that they necessarily say it as bluntly as this, we don't really want candidates to ring us. I go, hang on a second, you got 40 mission critical roles that you can't fill, and you don't put your name and phone number on an ad. Like, are you a freaking moron? Right? And then I go, okay, what's the average time between somebody submitting an application and getting a phone call for an interview? Oh, about 3 weeks. Right? And so you listen to this, and I'm sure you guys have heard all this before, and you go, these people are so stupid. You know, a company says our greatest asset is our people, and yet their investment in finding quality people is rubbish, and they're probably paying an HR manager 150K and a talent acquisition person, I don't know what they're paid now.
100, 120.
Let's say, you know, probably combined income, including on costs and so on, 300 grand. They've got 40 mission critical roles. They can't do their job. The CEO's probably going bananas. And yet here are these freaking idiots who don't even know how to recruit a job. So I went, I have to write a book. I have to write a book, you know, and I mean, I say some terrible things. So one of the things that I say, and I've said this on your podcast before because I know, because you did a little thing about it, it's one of the things I say is internal recruitment is where crap recruiters go to die. Right?
We're going to clip that up and we're going to post it on LinkedIn as a poll.
You're very welcome to. Okay.
Why do you say that?
Why? Because if you're a third-party recruiter, I mean, I've got a recruiter in my team. She's mid-30s. She works from home. Last year, she earned $350,000. Why would she go in-house?
Maybe she wants to not have to do BD.
So interesting though. Yeah. We
can have a whole conversation about that too. You know, so sure. So people go, I'm in a third party recruitment environment. I work for Arete, or I work for Hayes, or I work for wherever. I don't like doing BD. I don't like the pressure of KPIs. And I think it's going to be easier for me to go in-house and work for 80K.
I know that's the surface of what we all think. But like we spoke at a ASX listed company last year down in Sydney, and we were discussing personality profiling based off DISC, D-I-S-C.
Yeah, I know DISC.
Yeah. So we surveyed the entire room. There was about 150 people there.
Yeah.
Recruiters typically are D's, I's, and S's. Sometimes you'll get a C, but not very often.
True. I did it with my team when I was at
they stack up?
Davidson's, and it was high D, incredibly high I, middling S, no C.
Correct.
Exactly. So we went around the entire room and we profiled the entire room. What was the number one most common personality for an internal recruiter?
Probably completely the reverse.
Exactly. So
right. Okay, so
is there a place in recruitment Not that they're shit. They're a different personality type appeals.
Okay,
I'm not saying I'm not saying. I know you're not saying they're shit, but it's a different personality type that is required to do a different style of recruitment away from agency work.
Yes, you're absolutely true. So you're absolutely correct. So, for example, in my business, I have senior partners who are client-facing, BD, key account management, and I have associate partners who fill the jobs. Okay? And if you are a senior partner, you go out, you win the job, you bring it in, you give it to an associate partner, and very rarely would an associate partner want to be a senior partner or vice versa. Okay? So I agree with you completely. So to give more context to what I'm saying, if somebody's been a recruiter and then they choose to go in-house, largely it's because they've been unsuccessful as an external recruiter. So when I say their internal recruitment is where crap recruiters go to die, right? I suppose, what I'm really saying is that really, really great recruiters would never want to go in-house, because why would you go in-house and make 80 grand when you can work externally and make 300,000? It doesn't make sense. The other thing I say is that recruitment is not HR. Recruitment is sales, right? So when companies have early careerist HR professionals and they go, oh, come and join, pick a name, any name, Rio Tinto. Come and join Rio Tinto. You can do internal recruitment for a couple of years, and then you might move into, being an HR business partner or whatever. Okay? Recruitment is not HR. Recruitment is, I have to sell the employer on why I am the person to recruit the job. I have to sell the candidate on why they want the job. And then I have to sell the employer on why they want to hire the candidate. It's a sales job.
Exactly.
There's no HR in recruitment, other than the fact that you're selling a human body rather than a house.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's why sales roles are typically conditioned and done really well by people that work within that genius, that have a certain personality type. That's why if you're a good recruiter, you're more often than not going to be a great, you're likely to be a great recruiter and have an insane career like what it's done for all of us in this room.
Yeah.
But if your personality doesn't align to that, I'm for sure if there was a better education within the industry, which is hopefully this podcast brings some attention to that. But if there was a better education in the industry where people actually knew what was in our heads and they could link that together, internal talent acquisition teams would feel more confident.
Sure.
They'd fill more roles, because this, we're a CEO, what matters to him is return on investment, risk, opportunity. The internal talent acquisition team don't understand that. Okay. So then they can't communicate to the hiring managers. That's how you get this huge problem with unfilled roles, because having 40 roles out.
Yeah. I now, as a result of that book, I go to companies and I present to their ELT, this is how to run a really good recruitment process, and then they hire me to coach their head of talent acquisition for typically 3 to 4 months to actually do a good job, right? So everything you're saying is absolutely true. Understanding that the non-sales recruiter, who pick a title, any title, talent acquisition, really at the end of the day, they're an administrator. They're an admin person. Mm-hmm. Okay? And you're right, you look at our industry, and one of the terrible things about our industry is that there's no qualification. There's no accreditation. There's no barrier to entry. Any idiot can produce a business card that says, I'm an executive recruiter, and all of a sudden they're wandering around town telling people that's what they are. And you've got companies like, Hayes, who a lawyer will come and say, you know what, hate these 6-minute increments. I'm so bored of being a lawyer. And they go, why don't you become a legal recruiter? Honestly, you'll change people's lives. You'll get them jobs. It's so amazing. You'll make so much money. And they go, oh, actually, that sounds really cool. So they come and they be a legal recruiter or an accounting recruiter or an engineering recruiter or whatever it is. And then as soon as they come in, Hayes go, okay, you need to make 50 marketing calls a week. You need to do 12 visits. You need to pick up 20 contingent jobs and suddenly hit them with all of these sales KPIs because it's a sales job. And within 6 months' time, that person goes, what the freaking hell did I do? Why did I become a recruiter? And I can't remember the statistic specifically, but it is something like 90% of people who enter the career of recruitment leave within 2 years, never to return. And that is because recruitment companies, it's a bit like the old saying, plumbers have the worst pipes, or the cobbler's kids have no shoes. Recruitment companies are the worst at recruiting recruiters, including me, right? And one of the big issues is recruitment companies, they just tell lies. They lie to the prospective recruiter about what it actually means to be a recruiter.
They lie, or they give their version of their perception of what reality is. What's
the difference?
Well, one is based on their truth, and one is being facetious. Being
I would
misleading on purpose.
I would say probably there's a spectrum of some who outright lie through to some who actually believe what they're saying, which is largely crap.
Mm-hmm.
How do you know that?
As a candidate?
No, how do you know that recruiters are generally shit at recruiting for themselves? They lie, they pretend it's amazing. When someone gets in, it's shit and they leave.
Because I've been in the industry for 20 years and I wouldn't trust 98% of recruiters to walk my dog. Right? Now, there are excellent recruiters. Excellent. There are people who invest in their ongoing professional development, who do things to stand out above the crowd, who legitimately care and want to be the best version of a recruiter that they can be. But if you were to look at the recruitment industry and say how many people truly are that, okay, I know you guys are a lot younger than me, so I'm 57 and nearly 57 and old and cynical, but there's not many, right? There's not a lot, I've done a Bachelor of Commerce. I've done an Executive MBA. I did the KPI course. I've written 2 books. I'm a member of the AICD. I'm a member of the Brisbane Club. I'm a member of Vistage, which is formerly called Tech. I don't know if you know about that. It's like a mastermind group for business owners. I run my own version of the Brisbane Club. This is the second podcast I've been on today, right? And I'm not saying I'm amazing, but I tell you what, I'm pretty committed to doing a fucking good job.
Well, do you know why?
Do I know why?
Yeah.
Why are you so committed?
Why?
Because I love it.
Yeah, but Triggsy, mate, like you're at the top of the advice pyramid. You've been there, you've done that, you've walked the walk, you've talked the talk, you've helped a lot of people go do it. Having been at the top of an advice pyramid is the most important place to be. Then there's the coaches who've been, helped mentor other people.
Okay, I hear what you're saying. Okay, so my book, Uncover the Hidden Job Market. Basically, the premise is 80% of the best jobs never get advertised. They never get to a recruiter. They're never in the open job market. Employers instead hire through the hidden job market, which means they find somebody who can solve their problems and take away their pain, and they hire them even if they don't have a vacancy, right? Okay, so what I preach in that book is what you need to do is identify your employer of choice, identify within that organisation who you would most likely report to, and reach out to them and ask them for a meeting.
Well, how about we break that down for recruiters? Because I'm sure
Okay, so just to finish this point, and we will. Okay, so I've had Arete for 16 years. I've sold 20,000 copies of that book. I'm sure you would agree, I have a reasonable reputation in the market.
That's why I brought up the advice pyramid, because you're at the top.
Okay, right. How many recruiters in 16 years have reached out to me and said, hey, Richard, I really like what you're doing. I'd love to come and work with you and learn from you. 16 years, how many?
None.
None.
And I'll tell you why. Because finishing the advice ladder, there's other people around you, like you'll have mates in recruitment, like Paul, for example, and his wife. They're obviously doing something similar, run a great
Paul
business.
Benelli,
yeah, with Lime. And then below that, there's people who have witnessed other people do what they want to do, but they've never actually done it themselves. And then there's friends, family, colleagues who voice their opinions and get advice. And then number 6 is people on the internet, which we all have experienced people on the internet, right? We don't ever want to... People revolve around taking advice from people that are number 5 and number 6 on the advice ladder, and they wonder why they never get ahead. So although the missing gap to get recruiters to reach out to you is teach them how to reach out to you, like what you've done with that, like what you've done with these people. I think that would be the missing link for you. If you can break down, this is how you reach out to me as a recruiter, so you can get number 1 top advice from Richard Triggs on how to become the best recruiter and work at Arete. But everyone hovers around 5 and 6. They read the internet, they read reviews, they get perceptions.
I know, and
they never actually get to someone at the top.
And as a result, without naming any names,
our industry stays low level with no progression.
You would go, there are certain recruiters in Brisbane that work for a year for Davidson's, and then a year for Manpower, and then a year for this company, and then a year for that company, and then a year for that company. It's like, dude, just pick a lane, like invest. Find somebody that you actually admire and go and work for them.
Yeah, is that the top of the advice pyramid? But they're floating around chatting to people that maybe they'll chat to number 3, 4, 5. I'll send it to you after this. It'll blow your mind. You probably get it.
I'm very interested in what you're saying. But then you'd also, on the other side of the coin, say, well, they're just stupid, aren't they?
Are they stupid or they just don't know how?
Fuck, how hard is it, dude?
Mate, it's fucking hard. I'm telling you. Look at the future of AI. It's right. Who's going to get the best results out of AI? Whoever can put the best prompts in gets the best answers. And then whoever can leverage the best out of AI and with those answers, who can take massive action. That's how you're going to win the next phase of business. No one knows how to ask the right questions. No one knows the answers they need. You can't get the right answers unless you've got the best questions. No one actually knows what questions to ask, how to ask for help. That's why I sit on a mastermind and everyone's there going, I know I need this information. I need to be able to ask this question, but they sit there in silence and then they move on, like the story with the rusty nail.
Yeah.
That's life. So like if we can teach people to ask better questions, have the confidence to do it, we've got the answers. It's our job to be able to give them the answers back.
Sure. And, one of the things I love about what you guys are doing is you're actually creating a community of people who want to back themselves. Instead of slipping into the old-fashioned, go and get a job at Hayes and wear a black suit, and carry a black compendium and walk up and down Queen Street. And, there's so much more interesting ways to look at this,
exactly, yeah,
at this industry. I mean, look at me. Okay, I'm a hobo, right? But
you're too hard on yourself, mate.
Yeah, come on, mate. Come to the XR Movement Club every Friday. We'll turn it around.
But people want to do work with people that they know and trust, right? And anyway, so we can talk around and around this. But I think you're right. And by the way, I'm not saying if 47 people reach out to me after this podcast and ask me for a job, I can hire you all. But it amazes me. In 16 years, Not one single person. Like the last time I was on your podcast, I probably got, I would say, upwards of 40 to 50 connection requests, LinkedIn connection requests from recruiters, which I accepted.
Awesome.
And then nothing happened.
They didn't know how.
Really loved what you had to say on the podcast. You know, can I buy you a cup of coffee? I'd love to pick your brain. Nothing. Nothing.
Yeah, I mean, I hear what Declan says around how do you educate them to ask better questions, and I hear what you say. I mean, it's pretty basic stuff. So where's the middle ground between educating them to ask better questions and reach out? Maybe it's not a asking better questions thing. Maybe it's an effort thing.
Well, where it's at for me is through, because of course we're all limited in time, right? Okay, is how do I educate one to many? Well, I write a book. I run a podcast series. I run lunch and learn events. And so hopefully that encourages people to come in and become part of the community and learn through, you know, being part of the community. But at the end of the day, you know, they've got to take the step. It's not up to me to drag the person, you know, to me. Right? It's up to me to drag the employer to me. Right? I've got 30,000 LinkedIn connections, or roughly, I have about 29,000, so I keep having to cull in order to add new ones. Now, I didn't just click my fingers and have 30,000 LinkedIn connections, of which 9,000 are C-suite executives in Brisbane. I sat down there on the weekend, you know, often for an hour or 2 hours, or as I like to prefer to say, for 1 or 2 stubbies, and I sent connection requests. Okay? I have people in my team who've been in my team for 5 years and have 3,000 connections. And they go, Richard, how do you know everybody around town? Because I reach out and say, do you want a meeting? Right? I launched that book at the Brisbane Club, and I had probably close to 100 people show up, of which close to 80, 90 of those were CEOs and owners of businesses. And a member of my team, who I love, and I'm not being in any way disparaging, she goes, Richard, all these people showed up. Like, I can't believe that they all showed up for your book launch. Why did they all show up? I said, because I went and met with them in person. Because she sits at home, you know, on Teams and thinks I can form a relationship on Teams. You can't form a team relationship, right? You have to, our business is about relationship. And I might not agree with everything that you say and vice versa, but if we meet and we share, and as a result we build trust, you can't help but be successful.
Exactly.
And one of the best things about recruitment, which I say a lot, is that, you know, I'm 57. I've been in recruitment for 20 years. So the guys I knew when I was 37 were the sales manager. Now, at 57, they're the C-suite executive. If I stay in recruitment for another 15, 20 years, which I hope to, they'll be the chairman of the board. So as long as I don't overpromise and underdeliver, as long as I maintain those relationships, then as their career escalates and they love me and they want to use me, I can only be more successful.
The compounding affects the business.
Right. And yet, how many recruiters won't even return a phone call? My most recent one was the deputy chair of an ASX top 10 company. And he rang me up and he said, you know what, Richard, when I was the CEO of an ASX top 10 company, I could not stop recruiters from bashing down my door. They wanted my work. Corn Ferry, Russell Reynolds, Spencer Stewart, Egon Zender, blah, blah, blah. They were bashing down my door. We want your work. Now that I'm looking for a job, nobody will even return my email. I mean, as a recruiter, that is the most stupid thing, isn't it?
Yeah, but I don't think many directors are teaching this stuff, mate. Like, this is like top 1% information.
Is it really?
It is, mate. Otherwise, like, I know it sounds really silly. It sounds really simple, but like, no one's teaching, no CEO or recruitment agency manager. Why do you think we have 76% of the industry as a 3-person business or less?
Well,
I think like 64% are 1-person businesses because no one actually knows how to get out of it.
all right. Well, I tell you what. We'll have an offline conversation. Why don't we build a podcast series where we actually teach recruiters, this is how to set up a client meeting. This is how to, build a relationship. This is how to take a brief. This is how to deliver a shortlist. Because I don't know that there's a resource like that available.
There is. It's just top secret for XR partners only. Matt Cossins.
Right? If only 1% of recruiters know that they should return people's phone calls, God help our industry.
Or praise the people that have worked it out because they're going to be wildly successful.
Sure. But it's the other 599 people who are walking around town who are giving us a shit reputation.
Exactly. And that's why there'll be a huge, huge divide in months and years to come. It'll be undeniable.
We'll see.
Because I think it'll only, like there's big companies that are offshoring their recruiters. They're moving things to India just to keep account managers here in front of clients and then delivery teams offshore to cut back on costs because they can't retain junior staff.
But even that's dumb.
Exactly. So that's why I'm so passionate about the future of recruitment because the skill sets that we've learned are going to transcend this entire industry.
It's like one I get asked regularly. So, Richard, I know that when I write a CV, it gets passed through AI looking for keywords as to whether I should be interviewed. I go, every applicant for every job in my business, their CV is read by a human being. Because somebody might be awesome, but they're absolutely terrible at writing a CV. So why would you miss out on an excellent applicant because you're trusting AI to read a crap CV written by a fantastic candidate? It's dumb. And yet that's what's happening.
What do you reckon the consequences of the recruitment industry will be if we don't make these changes and help everyone level up together? Do you reckon there'll be a divide on my angle, or do you reckon, what are your thoughts? What do you reckon the consequences would be?
Well, I think there's...
for the ones that don't work this stuff out?
Well, they'll just leave.
They'll just fizzle out.
As they always have. They'll come, they'll have a look, they'll leave. I don't really respect, from a recruitment methodology point of view, a lot of the big global players. Pick a name, any name, Hayes. But I do respect the fact that they're a very successful business. They make a lot of money. They've been around for a long time. They obviously know what they're doing. It's just that how they choose to do it is not how I choose to do it. So, there's many ways to skin a cat. I also believe one of the true blessings that I had, even though it ended very poorly, was I was mentored by Bruce Davison for 5 years. And
he's a beast, I hear.
He, at the time, it's been 17 years since I worked there, but what an amazing boss, and taught me so much. So if you are an aspiring recruiter and you truly are committed to being the best that you can possibly be, find somebody excellent and latch onto them like a suckerfish on a shark, and that's how you learn. That's how I learn, and I'm sure with all the value adds that you offer to the people who are part of your community, that's how they learn too.
What could we do together? Maybe there's something, like I know you mentioned the podcast series. Maybe we could do an event or something to bring the best of the best together and help. Because you want everyone to do well. Like I don't think anyone actually, they might have limiting beliefs which cause them to think short-sighted and make decisions which affect people in a negative way. But I don't think anyone actually wants people to fail or do bad.
Well, there's a couple of people we spoke about before the podcast.
Yeah, I'm going to cast that as limiting beliefs.
But, the reality is, look, I'd love to. I mean, you mentioned Greg Savage, right? Now, Greg Savage has been around for a long time. And, he lives off his reputation and a well-deserved reputation. But, the world's moved on, and I think there are people who are doing some things a little more innovatively, and I'd like to hope Arete Executive is one of those. But there are people who get to a point and they want to give back to industry. And certainly, the great thing is, in my space, there are 5 top global search brands they call the Shrek brands. Spencer Stewart, Heidrick Struggles, Russell Reynolds, Egon Zehnder, Korn Ferry. I never compete against them, ever, because they charge 40%, and they recruit the CEO of Rio Tinto, right? And I'm humble enough to know nobody is ever going to ask Richard Triggs to recruit the CEO of Rio Tinto, right? But that's okay. I'm cool. I make enough money and so on. My biggest competitor is internal recruitment. I never compete against. You'd go, you must compete against Robert Walters or Davidson's or, whoever all the time. Never. Never. I compete against internal recruitment. And what happened was when LinkedIn Recruiter License came out, recruiters were like, oh, boo-hoo, LinkedIn Recruiters ruined our industry. And I went, I don't know if I told you the story previously, but there was an RCSA conference on Hamilton Island, and LinkedIn Recruiter had just come out. And I was really good friends with the people running LinkedIn because I thought LinkedIn was an awesome tool. And I'd even written my book, Uncover the Hidden Job Market, and a lot of that is about how to use LinkedIn to find a job. And I was literally sitting at the dinner table, and owners of recruitment companies were coming up and virtually spitting in the face of the people from LinkedIn.
Do you know Ed Glover?
Ed Glover.
Yeah. Does that ring a bell?
No.
So he's with the team now at Recruiter, and he's had an awesome career, but he was a head of sales at LinkedIn.
Right.
And so his job was to open the bid market and go and sell LinkedIn to end user customers.
Right.
And he goes, we thought it was going to be like shooting fish in a barrel. And do you know what he said most customers said back? Like, who are we holding accountable if we don't fill the role? I can't hold LinkedIn accountable, but I can hold a recruiter accountable as to why the job's not done.
Yeah, it's interesting.
And that's what he said was the biggest objection that they had to overcome, because he thought it was going to be easy. Like, recruitment's over. LinkedIn Recruiter's here. I'll teach all the CEOs how to use it and all their hiring teams, and then that's the end of recruitment. And they said, mate, respectfully, it sounds good, but like the opportunity cost of me sitting here using another software and training my team on another software, I'm better off just getting a recruiter that knows the market, knows the fields, and says, fill it for me.
And so if you want to dive down into that a little bit, right? So internal recruiter gets given a LinkedIn Recruiter license. oh, Sally's got an internal recruiter license, LinkedIn recruiter license now. Instead of paying $500,000 a year in recruitment fees, we'll just pay her $100,000 plus LinkedIn recruiter 20K or whatever, and we're going to save so much money, right? Number one, Sally's got 40 jobs on. She doesn't have any time to headhunt. Number two, she's never been trained how to headhunt. And because she's never been trained how to do it, she doesn't want to do it because it's scary. Now, the reality is headhunting is fun. Headhunting is probably the funnest part of our job because who doesn't want to get a phone call and be told, hey, we think you're awesome. We've got this amazing job. Would you be interested in thinking about it? But the internal recruiter, excuse me, because they've not been trained, they're scared. But the most important thing is an internal recruiter cannot headhunt because they have to disclose who they work for. So, hi, I'm Sally. I work for Rio Tinto. I'm contacting you, Bill Bloggs from BHP. Do you want to come and work for Rio Tinto? Whereas a third-party executive search professional can maintain confidentiality. So we can ring up and we can say, we're working for one of the top mining companies in the world. You've been identified as somebody that they would be interested in talking to. If I could demonstrate that this role is better than your current one, would you be interested in having a conversation about it? And what do they say? Of course. They never say no. They never say no. Because why not? You know, what's it going to cost me? 10-minute phone conversation, I might end up getting a $100,000 pay rise or whatever, right? Internal recruitment, again, no slight to them. But LinkedIn Recruiter, if you think sending emails on LinkedIn Recruiter is going to get you quality candidates, you're an idiot. Because it's no different to putting an ad on Seek, right? If I'm really, really busy and I'm in my job and I like it and I like my boss and I'm relatively well paid and I'm getting 80 emails a day and I'm up to my neck in crocodiles and I get this email from, you know, an internal recruiter, I just delete it.
I think probably to add to that as well, when people are looking for a role, there's much more credibility and authority going to a trusted advisor. As a recruiter, being your profession, you can really position yourself as a trusted advisor and get a lot more depth and interest out of the candidate to then be able to advise them on the direction that they need to go, even though you've got a financial interest in doing so. But if a HR manager at Rio Tinto is reaching out to Billy Bob at BHP, she's never going to be seen as the trusted advisor because there's a direct interest in what she's doing.
Well, that's true. And the other thing is, how does, to use your name, Billy Bob, how does Billy Bob trust the confidentiality of his application? Because he doesn't want, you know, his boss to find out he's talking to Rio Tinto if it's a job that he's not even interested in. So he wants to talk to a recruiter who can, you know, essentially guide and advise him, is this actually a job that you want to apply for? And he might go, actually, like, no. And in that instance, Rio Tinto never even knew that he was an applicant.
I'm just thinking out loud here. So this might be true for people not actively looking.
Yeah.
But I sense there's probably a higher amount or ratio of people that wouldn't use a recruiter if they're actively looking. Because there's this perception that the recruiter's going to just use me as a filler. They're going to try and figure out who's got the best fee, that my salary will come down because they're paying the recruiter. You know, all of these misconceptions of a candidate might have if they haven't used or understand how recruitment works. So in like one reality, when they're not actively looking, it's in their best interest and they like using a recruiter. But when they are looking, it's almost like...
Well, you definitely are seeing that in recruitment industry or specialisations, like, for example, legal. Okay, so there used to be legal recruiters, and the lawyer, property lawyer, 5-year property lawyer would walk in to the legal recruiter and go, oh, my boss is a dickhead, or I want a new job. And the legal recruiter will go, well, I can represent you to Gaydon's, and I can represent you to Clayton Utes, and I can represent you to and of course, on the basis that it's contingent recruitment, and if they make that representation and Gaydon's choose to hire that lawyer, then they get paid their 20% or whatever they get paid, right? Now, the active job seeker will go, who are the law firms that I would like to work for? And they will go direct. And that is hurting the legal recruitment industry a lot. And I would presume that would be very similar for lawyers, accountants, engineers, architects, professional services type people.
What about recruiters? What do you think about like the same situation in rec to rec? Like if you're a gun recruiter, do rec to recs place the top 1% of recruiters? Do they mainly focus on junior level staff? Do they have like if you're a rec to rec? Because the only reason I ask, because when I'm doing BD for X Recruiter, right, and I'm calling recruiters and having a chat to them, building pipeline for the future, understanding where they're at, what they want to do, what they want to change, and they're shocked that I call them. They're like, "You're calling me, mate. I'm in the office. Whoa, what's going on? Like, mate, I'm in the office. It's gonna have to be a conversation after." And I'm like, "Why are you so shocked by this? Like, you call people every day, but now you're on the receiving end of the line. You're freaking out because Declan from X Recruiters called you." So like, and I can only think that they're not actually getting smashed with calls from Rectorex. They're just getting LinkedIn DMs.
Okay, so I love talking about Rectorex. When I joined the recruitment industry, I had a meeting at Hudson or TMP Worldwide, and I was offered a job, and I accepted the job. And after I'd been there for a while, I came to a realisation, I really enjoy recruitment, but I really don't like working for TMP Worldwide. I'd rather work for a smaller boutique firm. Again, nothing about them so much, just my personality style. So I thought the mistake that I made is I only saw one recruitment company. What I really need to do is I need to go and see 6 or 7 recruitment companies and then make an informed decision about which culture or remuneration structure or whatever I preferred. And I had this thing in my mind, if you're a rec to rec, and so you're a recruiter who recruits recruiters for recruitment companies, you've got to be the best of the best. You've got to be the best because everybody would be judging you. They are the worst fucking recruiters in the world. I think rec to recs are absolutely and utterly appalling. And I've often thought, and this could be something that you and I could do, I could start a rec to rec business, and within 12 months, it would be the best rec to rec business in Australia because I know exactly how to do it.
Yeah.
And you are spot on. You need to build community. What do recruiters love to do? Get on the piss. So you go, okay, every second Friday of the month, we're going to go to the Elephant and Wheelbarrow, or whatever it's called nowadays, and come along and have a free drink. And it's open for all recruiters. And you just need to get to know them.
Yep.
And you just stay in touch with them. And you just watch what they're doing. And how do you find your candidates? Well, you just look at who's advertising on Seek. Like, it's the easiest job in the world.
I think me and Blake have placed more people at our partners' agencies than probably quite a few rec to recs have placed in the last year.
I would never spend 1 cent on a rec to rec.
I've spent 20 grand on a rec to rec.
Right.
As a retainer, never placed the role, moved on.
Let me tell you my favourite rec to rec story. How are you going for time, by the way?
I think we're up to 3 hours.
Yeah. We're
Right.
actually a little bit over, so this will be a good segue to.
Okay, I'll tell you my
And at
favourite.
least we know who you're not going to have at your Christmas dinner this year. Rec to Rex and internal TAs.
You guys have time. I spoke to the guy. No?
Okay, favourite Rex story. So I used to have a business partner in my business. And anyway, I used to be in business with my wife, Fiona Cochran, who left, became the marketing manager or client services manager for On Talent, and has come back to work for me. I think maybe I mentioned that at the beginning, right? But anyway, this is back in ye olden days when we were married, and we went on a Christmas holiday, and my business partner, who shall not be named, we needed to recruit an operations manager. So he recruited this operations manager through this woman, this Rec, who's no longer in the industry, and she places this guy in our business. And not long after that, the guy, my business partner, left. So this person was meant to be managed by my business partner. My business partner left, so this guy is now being managed by me. And I said to him, look, the reality is, as an operations manager, I don't think it's really working out, but I think you're a very good recruiter, and if you want to stay in as a senior partner, I'd love to have you stay as a senior partner. Oh, I'd love to stay as a senior partner. So, but he's never in the office, ever. Always out, never there, always dashing out, talking on the phone. So I ring the Rec to Rec that placed him. He was still in probation. And I said to her, listen, if this guy doesn't want to work here anymore, that's cool. But he's just never here. He's never engaged. Can you ring him up or talk to him and just find out what's going on? Because I need to know what's going on. Yeah, Richard, yeah, I'll definitely do that. Never heard from her again. So this guy, after 2 weeks, I went through his diary, and he must have had in that time 20 client meetings. So 19 of those people didn't actually exist. And the one person that did exist, he hadn't even met with them, because I rang them up. And so I call him in and I go, dude, I don't know what's going on, but obviously, you're taking the piss. And so see you later. And I ring the Rec to Rec and I say, I've just terminated this guy and this is the reason why, and blah, blah, blah. Well, a month later, he shows up as the general manager of a national recruitment company, general manager Queensland of a national recruitment company. And I knew his boss. So I rang his boss and I said, out of interest, when you employed this person, why did they say that they left Arete? Well, the Rec to Rec told us that you were facing financial difficulties, so you needed to make him redundant.
Wow.
Same Rec to Rec.
That's really poor.
The same Rec to Rec placed a guy that I terminated in another company and took another fee by making up a lie about my business. And I just went, I'm done.
That's fair enough. Well, we've ended on a really positive note here.
Yeah, I think coming back to what you were saying, if there's anything that I can do to help to lift the profile of the industry and to help to educate and support people, I'd love to do it.
Thank
as
you,
long as
Triggsy.
it's not,
We know you are.
really onerous.
Yeah, for sure.
But
As long as it be sent out to the masses. But I think the way they can do that is just buy your books, listen to your podcast, and invite you for a coffee.
Yeah.
We'll even put a script in on what you can automatically send to Triggs, and we'll get you a
Yeah,
coffee.
we'll give them the intro script, and they just have to copy and paste.
All right. So if you want a copy of Uncover the Hidden Job Market, my first book, you can just go to the Arete website and you can download that for free. I'm not yet giving away the new book for free because I want to at least try and cover the cost of publication, Winning the War for Talent. And to be frank, I don't do coffees because I just don't have time. But if somebody contacts me and says, hey, Richard, can I have 15 minutes of your time to have a Teams conversation or whatever, love to. More than happy to do that. Again, not 400 a week, but yeah, look, you know, there's a lot of things that I do which are completely stupid, right? And I always say to people, you know, it's not like I'm amazing. You know, I'm 30 kilos overweight. I know exactly what I need to do to lose weight, eat less and exercise more, but I don't do it, right? So there's just shit that people want to do and they don't want to do. And I get it. So, you know, there's things that I love doing and there's other things like, you know, eating salads and...
Eating less and exercising that you don't like doing.
I'd much rather go to the Brisbane Club and, you know, eat a yummy meal and drink delicious wine. So...
Well, Triggsy, hopefully we can do that with you next time, mate.
Well, I'd love to. And I really appreciate the opportunity to come back. I like the new digs. Your support crew here...
Serge and Ryan are the best.
Make you look like superstars.
Awesome.
Which is, you know, you're very lucky to have them. And I look forward to seeing you again soon.
Awesome.
Thanks Triggsy. Well done, brother.
See you, mate. Thanks for tuning in to another Confessions of a Recruiter podcast with Blake and Declan. We hope you enjoyed and got a lot of value and insights out of this episode. If you do have any questions or you would like to recommend someone to come on the Confessions podcast, we would love any introductions. And remember the rule of the podcast: like, share, and recommend it to a friend. Till next time.